Hello, everybody. How's it going, everyone?
Hello, everyone. Let's see. You guys hyped for the BitCraft Alpha 3?
I think we could probably get into it. I know a lot of people are asking some questions that I think we're about to answer. So I think as I was thinking how we could structure the stream, I know everyone's very excited to get in. I thought we could try and quickly go through some of the big changes in the patch notes and show those off to you guys. And that way, those people who aren't able to play right now will get a big taste of what's in the game and what's new stuff has come. And those people who are about to jump into the game can also get a bit of a primer for what they're gonna have access to as soon as they get into the game. So let me see here. Let me quickly.
Guess who's got the founder title?
You.
Me. You all two can have it if you want, but.
All right, let's see here. So I think maybe the first thing that we can talk about is the changes to the combat. So I know there's a lot of questions about this on the last stream, and I basically wanted to just review some of that stuff, and then we'll show that off a little bit. So the main thing to be aware of, as Tyler mentioned, is like the enemies in the world right now. We're kind of considering all the aggressive animals to be monsters, or that's what we're calling them. And so the first thing to be aware of is the act of fighting these monsters is separate right now from hunting. In the future, we're looking about like how it makes sense to intertwine these or have these be separate or have these be the same thing. But for right now, in order to be able to like design the system with a bunch of, new content and have it work the way we wanted without having negative impacts or influencing too much how hunting was already working, we kind of kept them separate. And basically what this means is that you'll have slayer weapons that can be used to slay monsters, and you'll have hunting weapons that can be used to hunt game. And so those will be separate right now. And so if you want to do hunting and slaying, you'll definitely want to have both of those. Let's see here. So the enemies have a few things going on with them. So the monsters in question, the first thing to be aware of is that because the world is a lot more dangerous right now, we wanted to make sure that players just coming in and getting their bearings in the game weren't immediately mobbed by so many animals, especially because because you can be coming into the game at any time. You could be coming in during the night or the day or in any place. So we wanted to make sure that you're coming into like a safe starting area. Once you leave that starting meadow biome, you're definitely going to encounter a lot of these enemies, especially if you are going out at night. It will be a lot more dangerous, and you'll also find that across the world there's basically like spawners, what I would just call like monster dens that will be spawning extra monsters, whether it's day or night. And these can be avoided, but they can also be destroyed. So if you're able to take a group of players and go distract the monsters and clear them out and then destroy their den, then they'll stop respawning there. So that's possibly something you might even want to hire some other players to do if you're not able to do it yourself. So I think actually if we want, we can switch over to the game view and we can show off a little bit of some of the new changes of how exactly this new combat works. And I think maybe the best place to start with that would be actually seeing kind of how the impact that the new AI system has had on hunting. So you can see right off the bat, the animals are a lot more responsive to the player. So we can run around here and see that these, as these saggy birds become aware of the player, they definitely will respond a lot more to the player's position. And we can hunt down one of these birds here. And so hunting is still very simple. We haven't changed this mechanically at all, but you can see basically already that the enemy AI is a little bit more advanced than it was in the past. And so in a second here, we'll run over and check out some of these monsters and see just how adverse they are going to be. I am definitely not equipped to handle them at this stage. This is a fairly fresh character, and I guess one thing we can show while we're on our way out of the meadows here is the some of the new UI and the new equipment. So this is now our we have our functional equipment again. So you can see right now I'm wearing some basically some cloth clothing, which is generally tailored towards crafting. So I've got a full set of the cloth armor here, which is giving me some crafting speed, movement speed. And so all of this is making me a little bit better at crafting and a little bit faster. And then also giving me some very nominal amounts of armor. And then you can see I also here have a Pyrolite spear and shield. So this is a more tanky weapon that's designed around kind of holding aggro on the enemies. This damage value in the tooltip here is not actually correct, but we'll go see if we can put this to use and just see how we stack up against some of these monsters. You can already see over there that we're being watched. All right, well, here goes nothing. So, doesn't look like I'm gonna win this one, fortunately. So I'm gonna boot it out of here before I get killed by this jackal. And let's see if we can go back and prepare ourselves a little bit more to handle this. So we'll eat some food. So the next thing you'll notice is that when you eat food, it doesn't instantly regenerate. So now I've eaten a level 1 snack. And so that's gonna, over the next 6 minutes, just keep regenerating my my stats here. So we can recover our health and our stamina as we head back to our current operation base, which is the next new thing that we wanted to show you guys. Let's see, I'm heading in the right direction, I think. And so the place where we're going now is very close to where you'll spawn into the game, and you'll basically get introduced to this in the first few minutes of the game. This is one of the Rune Settlements, and so this is basically a large ancient rune that was kind of repurposed by some travelers. And what that means is that you can basically use it. Any player can go in and use it essentially as if it was another player's base, but it's not owned by any players in the game. It's kind of owned by the NPCs. And so this will give you the basics of like what it's like to be a player in another player's settlement in the future. And so definitely players, after they get their bearings, will still be able to go out and create their own settlements. But this basically gives every player a jumping off board to get oriented with the game and their character, and decide if they're interested in going and kind of leveling up their character more, or they're interested in going and starting a settlement. So we can come in here. I'll actually turn that off for now. So this is one of the Rune settlements. And so we can see that there's a bunch of stuff to be found in here, including some other Clockwork Lab staff that are just getting into the game and testing some stuff. And the first thing you can do when you get to one of these, as you'll learn in the tutorial, is you can come to the statue at the center and set this as your home. So this is similar to like sleeping in a bed in previous alphas. So now you'll be able to set this as your home and teleport back here in the future. So we can also find some various structures around the ruined town. So we've got some crafting stations here with various stuff, which we'll look at in just a second. But we also have the reworked travelers, which have totally new sets of trades that's available that should hopefully bring a much more stable economy. But we're excited to see what you guys think and kind of continue balancing that as the alpha goes on. We also have this building behind Rumbug here, with which is a new bank type building, and so this will allow every player to like store a bunch of items, and the storage size of each of these slots is a lot bigger than your inventory, so you can hold a lot more stuff in here. And it's also like phased for just your player, so nobody else can take the stuff in here. But you can't access this stuff from any other bank. We can't access this stuff from any other bank in the world. You have to come back to this specific one to get it. And so I think let's see here. The next thing we can do is see a little bit how these buildings are working. So I can come over here to one of the crafting stations, and we can see that basically the way the crafting stations work now is there's a personal limit in terms of how many projects you can have. And there's also a shared limit that's shared by all the players. So right now I've got 10 rough cloth strips that I was crafting on this loom, which are now completed. I can collect all those. And we can see that basically now I have 0 projects going. I can start 10 projects before I'm at my limit. And right now there's 0 out of 255 people.
Can you pause for just a second to I'm going to just address chat that has been asking what the alpha is. So just a real quick overview. So this is BitCraft. We're currently in alpha. This is the 3rd alpha test. It's going to be running for about 2 months. And the name of the game basically is that you come into a world. It's completely fresh. It's sort of like a survival crafting mmorpg. We put all the players in the same world and you rebuild civilization from the ground up. So Carter's going through some of the new patch notes since the last alpha, and we've changed quite a bit about the game, but it's pretty exciting. So that's just a quick overview of that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, you can see there, basically, I was just able to collect that stuff and start some new ones going. And the thing you might have noticed there is, in order to start crafting this, it actually didn't come from my inventory. It came from this barter stall that I have set up nearby. And so you can actually, I'll show again, basically, if I store some cloth strips in here, I can walk over to this building, and you can see when I mouse over this building that the deployable highlights because it's within range. And you can actually, I believe in the settings, turn this on. Where would this be under? Controls, maybe? Enable. Yeah, so we can turn this on. And now you can basically, oh, maybe it's not showing. I'll have to. Oh, I think I need to turn this on. Anyway, I'm not sure what I need to do to turn that on properly, but basically there's a way to show a radius so you can see. Yeah, so either way you can see that this is highlighted, which basically means it's in range. And so if I come over here and click craft, we can see that from the stuff that I have in storage here, which I believe I can. Oh no, I can't open it right now from a distance, but basically I can see that I've got 24 cloth despite not having any in my inventory. So I would be able to craft some of this stuff here. And you can see again here, basically you have a personal project limit as well as the shared kind of limit for all the players. And so right now, for active crafting stations in the ruined town, it's only 1 project per person at a time. And then when I collect this, you'll see it goes back to 0. And then for the passive crafting stations, I believe it's 10 per person. But as you make your own towns, I believe that limit is not enforced if you're a member of the town. So if you're a visitor of the town, you can only start 1 thing at a time, which in this case, I'm a visitor of the ruined town. But if you are a member and it's your town, you can have as many ongoing stuff as you want.
Just a real quick thing, because some people are asking about how do I play the game. So the alpha is currently closed alpha, meaning it's invite only. That being said, the first thing you want to do is sign up on our website, and you will be entered to potentially get into the game. If you participate in our Discord, also, you're more likely to be able to get into the game because sometimes we post access there. But anyone, if they want to be guaranteed access, can also buy a supporter badge, which just supports the game and in our development as well. But To answer your question about is the only way to get in the supporter badge, the answer is no. That's not the case, and we regularly send out invites beyond that.
Yeah, I think in every alpha, there's been more people that have gotten in that haven't purchased supporter badges than have. So there's definitely always a large volume of invites going out to non-badge holders. It's just the badge holders are getting first guaranteed access at the beginning of the alpha.
Let's see. Do the other biomes have all the resources that are on spawn biome? I don't remember quite right, but I remember that the other biome there was lack of dirt, sand, etc.
Yeah, so we've tweaked some of the biome spawning in two ways. So number one, the biome that you start in here will have every resource of tier 1. So you can basically play through all of tier 1 without leaving the safe meadows. You can just play through the ruined town and in the surrounding areas, and you'll be able to play completely through tier 1. As you get into tier 2, there's no tier 2 or beyond resources found in the safe meadows. You'll have to go beyond into the forest, which is where you're going to start to encounter some dangers. And that's where setting up its settlement, player settlement in those in the forested area and building up some defenses and securing that area is going to be useful for not only yourself but other players who want to gather and get stuff. But after you leave the safe meadows, all of the tier 1 resources are also found in the forest among other biomes. So you can completely leave the safe area and still you don't need to come back here if you don't want to.
FoxVM FM says the UI looks fantastic. Kudos. Shout out to Randy for making it look beautiful. Do the monsters' dens work like the traders? Do they respawn? Oi Pre says.
They do respawn, and that I guess gets to the second thing I was going to mention with respect to the resource generation. So one thing that I know we had some big issues with in the past alphas that a lot of people commented on, and we agreed with a lot of the feedback that was given, was that we had this system where there's a global amount of resources. So say there's like 10,000 stone chunk resources in the world. As those got depleted, they would be respawned across the world, and they would be respawned in areas where there was kind of more space, or they would tend to more often respawn in areas where there was space. So if you completely cleared out one side of the world, over time they would respawn on both sides of the world, but eventually there would be a high density on one side of the world and a low density on the other side of the world. And we thought this made a lot of sense for kind of balancing the global economy of the world in terms of how abundant certain resources were. But we realized that it created not an optimal early game experience when you were looking for essential materials and you were faced with this kind of decision of like, or not even really knowing that you had to go across the world to find an abundance of the resource you were looking for. And so we rebalanced in a way where at the beginning of the game in the early tiers, you're going to find that the resources respawn much more locally. So if you cut down a tree in this area, eventually that tree is going to respawn roughly around this area. But as you get to the higher tier resources, those are going to continue to respawn more globally. So if you deplete all of the tier 5 ore from some island, it might not respawn there until some more of it is mined from other places in the world. And so what this kind of encourages is that in the early game, you can focus on just progressing and gathering resources that are nearby and not worrying about that area getting depleted. But as you get to the later parts of the game, there's a little bit more global dynamics, like supply and demand at play.
So really good question from Lanadai also. Can you show how we can travel between the starter settlements to group up with friends?
I sure can. So in addition to the Traveler and the bank building and the statue in the center, there's also a building which doesn't have an updated model right now. You'll notice that it looks like a stretched out claim totem. But I can come over to this, and this is basically our waystones. So right now I'm in the southern ruined town. And so you can see here that I can see that there's some other ruined towns that I could potentially go to. So why don't we teleport over to one of those? Actually, Tyler, I think you are in game right now. Are you able to tell which one you're at?
Yes, I'm in the northern one.
There's no northern one.
Well, I'm in the one that's north of you, so that's where I am. I've looked at my numbers.
Are you? Can you tell if you're in the eastern one or the western one if you open your map?
Gotta be western because I'm north 1816 and east 1558.
All right, well let's see.
I'm in the western one, yeah.
All right, let's
Which is north of you, so
they're both north of me though. One is northeast and one is northwest. So let's warp over there and see if we can find Tyler. And so basically every player is going to spawn within, I would say, a 1-minute walk of one of these ruined settlements. Here we go. We found Tyler. And so getting to your friends is just as simple as you can also open the map and just see. So we can zoom out. The other thing you'll notice is that any settlements, including the ruined settlements, will actually show up on the map, even if you haven't visited them yet. We're anticipating there being a lot less settlements in this alpha compared to previous alphas because we're doing a lot to encourage players to like join, at least as a visitor or as a member, other player settlements, rather than everyone just trying to make their own settlement. And so we really want to aggregate a lot more players in fewer settlements. And part of that is being able to know where a settlement is on the map so you can explore and go reach there. As well as the next thing that I think we could show, which is why might you want to go to one of these settlements? Well, another new feature is we have the trade finder down here. So we can open this up and we'll see that this will do a little bit of searching and it will find, okay, so right now we're in the Western Ruined Town, which is a distance of 16 away. And there's one stall with 23 offers. And I'm pretty sure this is actually going to be Rumbug over there. So we can open that up. Yeah, it's Rumbug's camp. We can open this up and we can see what's everything that is for sale here. And so if a player were to place down one of their deployables in here or anywhere in the world that's in a claim, they can basically list some offers and we'll be able to find those in here. So in fact, we could probably find, if I've set up a trade in the other town, we could find that and we could see it in here. And then I believe you can also, from here, let's search here.
People are
if we search
excited to play. Also, I'd like to make that point.
Eastern, how do I have to go into the location filter. So the way it works actually is we have two search bars here. So the first is an item search bar. So say I searched like plank, I can basically see, okay, what are things I can do with a plank? So in this case, my rough plank, it's being bought by Rumbug. So this is like the required item on the right-hand side and the offered item on the left-hand side. So I can see here that actually Rumbug will offer me some hex coins in exchange for 10 rough planks. So that's good to know. And these are some recipes here for basically unlocking some plank road recipes. So I could decide, oh, actually, I really want to unlock the dark plank road recipe for building in my base. And then I can basically just come here, click on this and find out, okay, where is that going to be on the map? It seems like it's somewhere over here. I think if I have it uncovered, it would actually be able to mark it, but we'll have to see. I think that should probably place a pin there. That's probably an error that's not doing that. So we'll get that fixed up, but basically it should be a lot easier to basically find what you want to trade. And
I might have missed this change, Carter, but are strawberries meant to just injure me?
I think that if you eat them raw, they're
they do nothing except to hurt me.
they fill your satiation, I think. So I guess we could look at that next.
They do damage to me. I just want to be very clear.
Yeah, that probably shouldn't be the case.
I mean, but you know, it is what it is.
Maybe if they were like some sort of poisonous berry, I could see that making sense. But we'll have to. I'll take a look at that with the design content team later. But we can see here, I actually already have some food, and basically the way it works is the satiation. We did have this as kind of a inverse version of this in the past, but now this is considered how full you are. Basically, there's no penalty to being full, and you can still eat when you're full. You're just trying to avoid starving to death in this case, and it lasts quite a while. So once you're fully full, you can see here that I'm just losing one fullness every minute, which means that if I'm completely full, it'll be over an hour before I need to eat anymore. So I'll eat a few of these roasted fish that I have, and some of these mashed berries. So that takes me up to just over an hour before I need to eat again. You will realistically probably want to snack on some stuff to keep your regen up. And so right now, the things that I just ate are considered snacks. So they only last around 5 or 6 minutes when you eat them. But if you eat a more complicated meal, that will last quite a bit longer. So you'll be able to kind of keep your regen buffs going for a lot longer. So one thing you'll notice is that for the deployables, this is a much larger part of your progression journey in the game now. So under the deployables here, you can see right now I have 3 things, but you'll actually notice at the top here that everything's split into 5 categories. So we have boats, caches, carts, mounts, and trader stands. So right now I have a cart, a trader stand, and a cache. And so right now this cache has 16 item slots and 4 cargo slots. But if this is basically the first one you're able to get. If I come over to Rumba here, we can search cache, and we can see that he'll sell me a schematic to make a improved personal cache. And so I believe if I go into my bank here, or sorry, my compendium, and I search cache, we can see that I have the personal cache that I have right now. And one of the uses for that is with this improved personal cache schematic and the personal cache I have right now. I can also use some refined rough bricks and some pyrolite nails, and I can upgrade this cache to an improved personal cache, which will I'll have to see here. I think it should say in the description here the size of it, but because this is the item description and not the collectible description, it's not showing the correct tooltip info. So that's another thing we should fix. I saw someone just asked about the secondary professions, so I can finish showing the rest of this UI maybe. So one thing that's worth mentioning here is that while we have these new functional clothing things, we still have the cosmetics from the vault. So you can actually open here the vault, and you can see that you could go to one of these sections, and even though I have, for example, this woven shirt and these woven shorts equipped right now, I could come in here and I could take like this grass shirt that I previously had and collected the appearance of, and I can override my appearance on that. And then I could also disable that if I wanted to go back to showing my current equipment. And then the way that you expand this kind of collection here is, say I got a new, better hat that I wanted to wear, I could take this off, and instead of equipping it, I could add it to my vault. And then I could throw it in here, and now I can cosmetically wear this, even though I'm not getting any stats from it. So now it's kind of like transmog, but the cool thing about this is if you constantly are like replacing what's in this slot, you don't have to constantly reapply the transmog, because the transmog is coming through on the slot rather than on the item itself. So we thought this was a better way to do it. I'm curious what you guys think. And then the next thing I can show is the so we've basically taken the previous skills in the game, and we've kind of split them up into 2 groups. And in fact, the second group really wasn't in the game before, but it had been a bunch of stuff that had either previously been in the game or was requested to be in the game. And basically the way you can think of this is what makes something a primary profession is these are things that the game will incentivize you to specialize in. So if you want to really pursue something deeply in the game, this is something where doing this and not pursuing any of the other things is encouraged. Whereas secondary professions are currently things that you can also pursue very deeply in the game, but these are things where pursuing not just one, but maybe all of these or many of these is never something that we want to discourage. So you can be a miner, but you might also be interested in trading or exploring, and those can be things that complement your primary profession of being a miner, while still being things that have a deep progression and deep kind of focus to them, as well as there's nothing stopping you from pursuing some of these secondary professions as deeply as one might pursue a primary profession. It's just that the game doesn't disincentivize you from exploring other ones, if that makes sense. So we're gonna, I think, figure out a little bit more of how we want to communicate this to players. I would say the secondary professions tab here is still in the infancy. So right now you'll notice that like most of these things you can't even gain experience in these. and they don't offer any unlocks at this stage.
So
But we're starting
have
to
a
layer
question,
in. Yeah, go ahead.
about the naming scheme. Is secondary and primary something we want to go with long term, or are those technical names?
I don't think so. I think we've considered a bunch of names. I'm not even sure if this is what we've 100% settled on. I think, in fact, I think we have settled on. I think the current plan is to use different names than this. But I just don't think it's reached into like the current live version of the game yet.
It's sort
But I
of
think I agree that there's potentially some better words that could more clearly communicate our intent for these.
also a good question from chat as well. Is the game a little bit more forgiving for solo play?
I would say definitely. So there is a lot of stuff that we did to basically make playing the game casually and playing the game by yourself a lot smoother of an experience. So the first biggest thing, which I kind of mentioned earlier in the stream, is that because you can fully play the game without having your own settlement now, it doesn't require you to constantly be dealing with maintaining settlement, like a settlement maintenance. Basically, you can just be a wandering traveler who goes from settlement to settlement, fully using all the buildings in other player settlements to progress yourself, to build your wealth, going and trading with other players, using their crafting stations, upgrading, reaching the higher tiers. And if you want to take a 2-week break from the game, you can just log off one day and not come back in. And then as soon as you come back, everything is going to be ready to pick up. I see another question here, actually. YOLO Anonymous RL said, has the load on the GPU been fixed, 3Blade? So I can speak to this. We found out what I believe is like the 90% contributor to the issues with the game. And it had to do with, I'll spare too much technical details, but it had to do with what you can see here is the grass kind of matches the color of the terrain. It was basically doing this calculation in a way more precise, intensive way than it needed to be. And so we were able to turn that down dramatically. And that's definitely, like, I think you can see here, I'm definitely hitting, I have it capped at 60 FPS because of my monitor, but I'm definitely hitting solid 60 FPS here. And if that is not, I'm also on ultra here. If you're not hitting good enough stuff, one thing that you can actually do here is you can turn down this grass density, and this should basically, this will, I mean, you can turn it all the way down, which will turn off the grass, but you can also turn it less of the way down. And this will basically still give you some grass in the game world, but it will, if you're not hitting a high enough frame rate, this will definitely make a large impact. The underlying reason why this isn't as performant as it could be is also something that we can still improve quite a bit. And so right now, this is a bit of a band-aid to just say like, hey, reduce the grass and make it the calculation a bit simpler. Ultimately, we're going to go back and just fix the shader so that that performance issue isn't there at all. Let me just see. There might be a few other things we can go through. So I guess on the note of just being forgiving for single player. So one thing that we've done with the settlement creation aspect is, as you get into the game, you might be wondering, okay, I want to go out and start my own settlement like before. So the way that you do that now is actually you're going to have to start in these ruined towns, and Rumbug over here you can trade with, and you'll be able to see that there's some stuff here where he'll be requiring or requesting certain tier 1 items, and in exchange for that you can get hex coins. Once you trade up enough of these hex coins and you're able to master tier 1 to the point of completing some codexes, you'll be able to trade those in for a writ of settlement foundation, and then you can use this settlement writ to basically go out and found your settlement somewhere in the world. Keep in mind that once you place this, you will, if you want to make multiple settlements, you'll have to get more of these. If you do place it and you want to move your settlement, though, you can deconstruct it to get this writ back. The other thing is you'll also need to, if you personally are, if you're the person who buys the writ, you'll get this automatically. But if you're not, you can also get access to the building recipes by buying this settlement building recipes scroll, which is very cheap, but will basically kind of unlock all the settlement structures. This just prevents it from kind of overwhelming your compendium and your build menu if you're not interested in jumping into that building stuff right away. And what does this mean? I guess the reason we've done this is we wanted to make, if you want there to be many players in one settlement, it means there needs to be less settlements than players, which means that every player on average isn't making their own settlement. And so part of what we wanted to do is let all players kind of focus the very first few hours of the game on their character, and then make an informed decision of whether they want to go the route of starting a settlement with their friends or by themselves. And we've playtested this internally. It's definitely easy and possible to start a settlement by yourself. It will take, a few hours of getting your bearings in the town and getting some coins from Rumbug, but it's definitely doable.
Maybe we could do just a few questions from chat.
Yeah, the last thing I want to mention on that is, as a kind of compromise for increasing the cost of starting the settlement to hopefully lead to less settlements, we've also dramatically rebalanced the cost of maintaining a settlement. So you'll find that when you do start a settlement, the size of it is much bigger in terms of how much you can build, and the cost of maintaining it is much more forgiving, so it's a lot lower. And the other aspect to that is we've also introduced a concept of claim stability. This might be something that will require balancing over the alpha, but basically what this means is building the kind of like spider web looking claims where you're like removing tiles in the middle of your claim to like make the claim have less tiles. This will now kind of punish you, I think, more than it's worth, in the sense that having a very large contiguous claim will be considered very stable and have a lower cost. But if you make a claim full of holes or very like snaking, it will be considered less stable and it will have a higher cost to maintain. So we want to allow players the freedom to like build interesting claims, but we don't want players trying to like abuse the tile system to make like branching arms that go off as far as they can in every direction. Now that definitely should be more expensive than it's worth. It might be worth just making a second claim.
So I think people are getting a little bit itchy to play here. Gaming with JT says, is Alpha 3 released yet? I have a game key and it says the login server is currently unavailable. And we've got several other comments to that nature. What's the plan for the go live here, Carter?
Yeah, so I think I'm just taking a look here. I think that hits most of the big things. We have a ton of other small stuff that's been improved and overhauled in the patch notes, but I think we can just let people go through that on their own. I think it's some stuff that we already mentioned in the previous.
Well, we can let people in and then continue going over patch notes for people who.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, basically what I was getting to is I think we can let everybody in and see this town with some people in it. I think that'll be very exciting.
Lady Manticore notes that we've got 2 minutes until the time that we said. Do people get more than one supporter badge? Still get keys for each badge? Only got the one set. You should get key for each badge that you purchase. If you have not, could you please file a ticket on our website?
Yes.
Some have broken launcher. How long until some support tickets get attention? We are going to work diligently to address issues if we can.
Yeah, I think it's possible if some people, if there's truly issues with the launcher, I think we'll probably upload a like a zip file where you can just download the game files if your launcher somehow isn't working. But I think it's probably likely that it might be likely that you're trying to. I don't know if they've pushed out the most recent build of the game onto the launcher yet. I think they might have been just waiting for an updated build, and so it might be that the build that you downloaded from the launcher isn't compatible right now. So I would wait till when the server's live and everyone's logging in, double check that you can't download the most recent thing on the launcher. I've been told that the server is open, so if you haven't, if you're already like sitting in the launch or in the build, you may want to just like close it and restart it just to make sure it like gets the correct like most recent version. But you should be able to connect to the game.
Oh Lord, they coming.
In fact, I think I had a bit of a hiccup there, which might indicate some connections.
Someone asked also, has the latency been improved? So actually this alpha is running on an older version of Space-Time DB, slightly older just for stability reasons because we've made a lot of changes. The next test will have all of the new improvements that we've made as well, so we should have even better performance.
Well, while we're waiting to see how things go here, we can go through some of the other stuff in the patch notes. So one thing you might have already seen is that we re-added experience drops to the UI. This is something that we had in the past, but we've re-added it now, so you're able to actually see as you gain experience. So we can see here, as my character's crafting, we can see 23 XP as every time I do an action. We can see that going up here on my masonry skill. So that's one cool new thing. We've also added the wallet to the game. And so now in your inventory, we have this wallet slot. And so you can now put coins into your wallet. You can also withdraw a specific amount. And if you want to trade with someone, for example. But most of the actions you do, like if you receive coins, they'll go directly into here. If you will go to buy something from a trader stall, that will get pulled directly out of your wallet. So generally, you don't need to take stuff out unless you're trying to give it to someone. One thing I talked briefly about before is we've overhauled the inventory sizes and stacking. And so one thing you'll notice if I come over here to my bank is that almost every item in the game that previously didn't stack now stacks to 10. And the other thing that we've changed is that in mobile entities in the game, so like on your player, in carts, in vehicles, anything that can move, the inventory sizes are unchanged. But in anything that is static, so things like chests, your personal cash, your trader stands, and your bank, in these buildings, we've made it so that items stack 10 times as deep. So you'll notice that here I have 36 wood logs in this slot, but if I bring these out, you'll see that they only stack to 10 apiece. So I can actually put 100 per slot in here. Now you'll think, okay, well, 100 is going to fill this up pretty quick still. That's where the cargo packaging comes in. So you can see here I actually have 5 packs of 100 logs. So you can actually stack these even more than 100 per item slot if you package them into cargo. And so this is kind of part of how we've designed the game to the content to allow you to kind of store more of certain items by grouping them together and also by using the cargo spaces. This also means that if you want to transport large quantities of items around the world, kind of packaging them into cargo is very useful because especially in mobile entities, cargo is a lot easier to move stuff compared to the more limited item slots. Let's see, what else do we have on here? I think I already showed this, but in the UI here, we've got a much better visualization of the professions and stuff. So you can see actually a little progress bar here with your progress on each skill. You can actually take and remove your tool directly from here. In the future, there's going to be other equipment and accessories associated with these professions. So we've got some placeholder slots for those. But you'll also notice that one thing we added to the game, which you can see on the stats page here, is the professions also have individual specific stats now. So for a given profession, you could get a piece of equipment that improves just the power of that profession. So you can think of power as like increasing your tool damage, and you can also increase the speed. So right now, because... Go ahead. So you can see here actually that from my equipment that I have here, I'm getting some crafting speed, and we can see that that's basically being summarized here. So this crafting speed will actually affect all professions anytime I'm doing a crafting action on a crafting table. But you could also stack that with, like, for example, carpenter speed, which then if you're doing carpenter crafting, you're going to basically benefit from both the crafting speed and the carpenter speed and the carpenter power and the underlying tool power of your carpentry tool here. So there's a lot of ways that you can like combine powering up your character to specialize in certain things. One other thing that I was just being reminded of is we've updated the controls of the game a little bit based on looking at some other games and kind of getting feedback from the players. And one thing that we've changed now is that the context menu, which previously used to be instant on the UI when you right clicked, is now instant on entities in the world when you right click. Now what this means is that you can't like quickly right click to do the first action. And so what we've now actually done is basically exposed all of this as keybind, like rebindable keybinds. So you'll see that like move and interact and context menu now are all properly bound in here. And so if you prefer the old system where right clicking would instantly interact, you can actually just come up here and we could set this to just be so it looks like there's an issue where it's not recognizing the modifier keys right now. So we'll have to look into that. But basically, you could normally rebind this. Like I can rebind this to K. I think it's showing that there's a conflict. What I was trying to do, which wasn't working there, was rebind this to shift right mouse button and swap it, basically swap the context menu and the interact, but it doesn't seem to be working. So we'll have to have someone on the engineering team look into that. But the other thing that we also offer is we have kind of two pre-made kind of control schemes that we expose. So there's the left click to interact, which I can quickly apply, which basically gives us a version of the game where left clicking on stuff will go up and instantly do it. And right clicking gives the context menu, and you can still left click on the ground to move. And then I believe in that control scheme, if you want to just move and not possibly interact with something, I believe shift left mouse button will just do a guaranteed move. So if you click on a resource with shift left mouse button, you'll move. The other control scheme that we kind of offer as like a preset is left click to move. And so this changes it. So move is just with left click. Interact is shift right mouse button to do the first action. And then the context menu is going to be on just the right mouse button with no shift. But of course, you can customize these to your liking, however you want to do it. Looks like we've got quite a few people in here now, which is exciting to see. This is definitely what I had envisioned for these Rune settlements. It's nice to really see a lot of players hanging around in here. So I'm very excited to see how this goes as players progress. So that's one thing on the control side. Another thing we've done is with the previously we had the ability to hit Alt to toggle these kind of labels for stuff that would give you some extra information. We've expanded and kind of improved the details you get from this, so you can actually tell on certain things like when something belongs to you. Oh, there, actually, for a second there, I was seeing the outline. I'm not sure what I need to do to make that show again. But the other thing that we did is we made it so Alt is like a hold key. So every time you Alt tab, you're not like accidentally toggling this on and off. And now U is a separate key that you can use to toggle this. So that hopefully makes that a little bit easier to turn on and leave on if you want it. One thing that I know a lot of people will be excited about is we added the ability to cancel stuff that's in progress and get the items refunded. So I can come over to this tailoring station and start crafting here, and say I go to craft. Right now I have 33 cloth strips. If I go to craft a bunch of these, actually maybe that's too many. Let's just do 4. It's going to be 200 effort, and I'm going to use 16 of my cloth strips, and I can start this. I can actually, as soon as I start doing this, if I decide I want to cancel this, I can now go in here, cancel the craft, scrap it, and I'm going to get a bunch of cloth strips back. So I can now get a refund for that. I'm sure we've all been in the position where we started crafting a bunch of stuff, and then we started crafting a huge project, and then it was so much effort to finish it, and we wished we had started with a lower quantity. So now you can do that. The one caveat though is if you're in the middle of crafting something, so say you're crafting like 20 quantity, you'll only be able to refund 20 if you are in between starting and finishing a craft. If something is partially completed, you will lose some of the inputs from that one. So you can see there, because I did 20 effort, one of those 4 things that I started crafting was lost. I can get into the reasons for this, but it has to do with like infinite XP farming. And so basically I'll lose some strips, but I'm able to refund all the ones that I didn't start yet. So hopefully that is nice for some people. Let's see what else. We added the waystone, which we already talked about. We added a new type of building, which, let me see. I'm not sure how to access it in here, but I believe we added a new elevator type of building. I'll need to figure out what needs to be done to unlock this, because I don't think I can build it here. I think it maybe has to be built on a claim. Yeah, it requires claim tech tier 1. So we'll have to update this. So this is I think able to be built off of the claim. I think there's not a good reason that this needs to be limited still. This is probably just didn't get updated correctly. But basically you'll be able to build these elevators and across cliffs, and then you'll be able to use those to traverse those. So I'm excited to see when some people build those in the game.
This just a quick update on some of the server stuff. I'm looking at some of the metrics. Very interesting. It's very like look at I like to see the people move like periodically. So the server is struggling. We're investigating what the situation is with that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's improved since everyone was trying to connect at the beginning, but it's definitely
improving,
not
but it's still
where
struggling.
Yeah, it's definitely not where it needs to be. So I know that there's people in the background looking at this right now. So we'll have to wait yes, from them to make some progress. So we'll have to see how the economy goes. Let's see what else we have in here. So I think I already showed off a little bit that you can gather and craft stuff, and the items will be drawn to and from your nearby deployables. But we can show that a little bit more here. So what happened there? So I'm not sure why it was showing the radius for a minute and now it's not showing it anymore. We'll have to figure out why that's not working. Another thing that we've done that I actually can show here is, oh yeah, it seems like it's only when you're far away or something. I'm not sure what exactly is going on there.
Only when you're far away, what?
You can see the radius. There's definitely something weird with that, but basically this was that setting that I was talking about, where you can see basically the radius that your deployable needs to be in to have the inventory. Yeah, have the inventory be used. So I don't think we can build in the meadows here. It's designed to be set up in a way that you can't build too close to the spawn area so that it's not disrupting players. But what we can do is head to the edge and see if we can survive against the jackals for long enough to show some of the changes to terraforming that got improved. So the summary of this, though, is that basically you'll be able to build a terraforming site, and you'll be able to choose the destination height rather than having to constantly like approve moving it up every time the height changes. So you'll be able to say like, hey, raise this by 10 height to this level, and then you can just dig all the way to that destination, which is definitely nice to do, especially because what this means is if you're a town owner, you can build a bunch of these dig sites and you can set the target destination, and then anybody can just come in and help dig them. So you could, informally offer someone some compensation for helping dig the stuff, or you could, someone might just come through just to level their construction by practicing terraforming. So we imagine in the future we'll be able to incorporate more kind of dynamics with that, but basically letting the town owners and architects like set up how they want terraforming to be done, and then anyone can just come and help out without having to have it be micromanaged. Alrighty. Well, I was able to escape the jackals somehow. Why don't we... one thing I was actually in the middle of getting to before that I didn't get to is I was talking about the professions here and how there'll be profession-specific stats. So one of the things that we changed as well on the equipment here is that you now have a jewelry slot, and so this generally results in a lot of items in the game where you can craft various jewelry that will improve your specific profession. So one of the items I got earlier in the stream was this rough ruby, and we can go into the uses here, and I believe I can make a rough ruby ring, which will increase... Oh, okay, sorry, I just realized I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. Okay, hopefully now that should be visible. But I was showing earlier, I guess in the equipment, we have a new slot here for jewelry. And so while I was mining, I actually found a geode that had a rough ruby inside. And so if I open that up in the compendium here, with unfortunately 3 rough rubies, I was hoping it would be 1, but if I can get a few more rough rubies, I can make a ruby ring, which will give me scholar and cooking and fishing speed. So I think there might be an interesting opportunity to like trade some of these around. And I think there's other jewelry you can make that's not just coming from gemstones, like from other professions. So I think there'll be some chances to specialize your character using that slot. Is it only 3 ruined towns? So for right now, for this Alpha 3 playtest, at least for the beginning, we only have 3 ruined towns set up. We were trying to kind of estimate what would be the right amount of them, but for the future, we're definitely going to see what happens in this playtest and adjust from there. I think it's possible we might even spawn some additional ones if it's needed over the course of the test, but really what we ultimately want is to get as many people in as few towns as possible. And so the existence of the 3 was really just because we were worried about if we had 500 people or more all congregating in one of these towns, that while the server can handle it, I think the individual player clients having 200 players on screen with all the animations and stuff didn't handle it as smooth as we would like. And so that's what led us to deciding to split it up into 3 towns. But for a while, we were considering just having one of these ruined towns. We'll just have to see how we're able to improve things in the future. I'm seeing some familiar names and faces in the game so far, which is also exciting. I see some players asking, why is the temple so far? We wanted the whole original thing that got a lot of people excited about BitCraft, I think in the first trailer we put out, was this idea of like a player's journey across the wide-reaching world to discover the secrets of the past and, see what the world has to offer. We wanted to send our players on a similar journey in Alpha 3. So think of this kind of quest line as just the beginning. Stomach's full. How do I regain stamina now that I can't rest? So if you ever get completely out of stamina and you basically are not doing any activity that's currently draining your stamina will slowly regen over time. But the main way that you should regen stamina is by eating food. So I believe in the tutorial you would have gotten a set of skewers from Wisp. You can eat those to gain a buff, and that will regen your stamina a lot more quickly over time.
What about the fact that their stomach's full?
They can still eat if their stomach's full. There's no limit for that. It's just yeah, if your stomach gets empty, you'll starve, but you can continue to eat when you're full. There's no limit there. The thing that you can't, or the thing that you should be careful about though, is because when you eat, it gives you a regen over time buff. Eating a bunch of things back to back to back, other than restoring your fullness, won't have any impact on your regeneration. So you may want to not eat a bunch of stuff right at once. I see someone asked, can you sit down anymore? You can still sit. It's now an emote. So instead of being able to sit through the resting system, you'll have to just do the emote. So you can type /sit, I believe, and that should work. We'll see. Maybe after nighttime's over, I can get out of the river. But right now, I think it's the safest place to be when I see all these jackals just waiting for me to take a step out so they can take a bite of me. Oh. Oh. Will we see y'all in-game more this test? I think so. I think during the last test, there was a lot of stuff we were working on in the background. But I'm super excited to play more of Alpha 3. I've spent a lot of time playtesting versions of, like pre-versions of Alpha 3 internally, and it's definitely been the most I've been addicted to the game in a while. So I'm very excited to play more in a world that's going to be lasting for longer than we generally have played, and also one where I can play with a lot of other people and actually experience some of like the economy and other aspects of the game that we don't get to dive as deeply into during our internal employee playtests. I saw someone in chat just asking about the fish, if those were for something. So the fish, these are fishing nodes that you can fish at. But as soon as I stand here, I'm gonna attract the ire of the jackals. Unfortunately, I haven't made a a raft yet. So I honestly think I maybe should just go do that. Let's teleport back to safety and see how the town is coming along. Definitely got quite a few players in here. Oh my goodness. I almost wish I could turn off the names just to see like the organic kind of ness of players just running around.
True.
This is super awesome to see so many players. It's been a while since I've seen this many players all in one area in the game. And it's going to be even better once people start to have some outfits. Right now, everyone's wearing the starting grass clothes.
That, and also being able to move around without timestamp invalid. Alas.
But yeah, this is looking great. I'm so excited to see everyone in the town here. One other thing we've improved, which I don't know if everyone will be able to appreciate, but we've changed the way the light sources work in the game to make them something that we can... one other thing we've improved, which I don't know if everyone will be able to appreciate, but we've changed the way the light sources work in the game to make them something that we can like scale. The previous light sources were very expensive, and so we couldn't have very many of them in the game world, but we've kind of updated to a new technology of rendering the lights, and so we haven't it's definitely not as good as it can look in the future, but it has shown a lot of promise, and so we got a very like early version of this into the game for Alpha 3, but we're going to keep building on this tech and kind of expanding its use in the content of the game.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's like the way it kind of glows and lights up the stuff around it. I think looks...
Well, we also have the flame buff, which may be something you can explain.
Yeah, so one of the ways that you can keep your town safe in the game world is that the monsters in the game, at least right now, currently fear lights and fire. So one of the things you can do, in addition to building a wall around your base, is to place certain light sources. And you'll see right now I have a buff on my character called Nearby Flame that basically means I'm close enough to a light source or a flame source that I'm not being kind of considered as being attacked by a monster. So right now, even if there was a jackal here, they wouldn't be comfortable attacking me because I'm too close to a light source. And so as you build your own settlement, you're going to want to not only wall in the settlement because the jackals won't be able to attack the larger walls, but when you place a gate, the gate will include light sources like that, so they won't come through the open gate. And also you can build like braziers and torches and other stuff like that to kind of ward off enemies in addition to the walls.
Yes, that, and also
can I terraform a wall around my town instead of a wall? So the answer to this is yes. It might be a lot more effort than making a wall, but if you make a large enough cliff, the monsters can't traverse it. And so you could terraform a earthen wall, so to speak, around your settlement, and then put a gate in like a little valley that opens up to let yourself through that. So you could do that if you wanted, and it would keep your base safe. Is that the same with the moat? So right now, we have some limitations on terraforming with water due to some technical and design stuff we're still figuring out. In the future, we're interested in letting players terraform rivers and stuff like that. We just need to make sure that we do it in a way that makes sense, so we're not completely invalidating all of the land travel by just letting players make rivers everywhere, and also making sure that players aren't like using rivers to grief other players or digging, filling in rivers or moving rivers in a way that's causing too much grief.
The other thing about the flame too is that we want you to be able to build roads and be able to travel along those roads without being attacked. So putting flames up there is helpful.
People were asking about this in the last stream, and like, why didn't we add this or why didn't we improve this for Alpha 3 when there's obviously so many things we could do? How do we decide like what stuff we actually focus on? I think the key thing right now is that because the game is still in alpha by our standards, part of what that means is that we're still trying to figure out, obviously the game has a thesis, but we're still trying to figure out like to what degree that thesis is working, and is the plans that we have for the game, like the fundamental core systems and like the skeleton of the game, is that creating the right incentives and causing players to play in the right way, in a way that's fun and kind of sustainable for the game? And so what we're trying to iterate on right now is stuff to discover, like, really, like, does the game have good bones? And there's lots of things like, add a friends list or add this or add that. These are things that we for sure want to do, but they're less critical to like figuring out, like, does the thesis of what makes BitCraft a unique game, does that actually work? Is that something players want to play? Is that something that like can exist for a while, or like is there some fundamental design flaw with it? And so we ourselves are really trying to like answer those questions and iterate on things that are going to help us resolve that, as far as like confirming that, like, okay, our vision for BitCraft is a good idea and is going to lead to a game that works really well. And if there's things along the way to that we're not aware of, that's part of what alpha is about, figuring that out and navigating that uncharted path to make BitCraft at its skeleton really good. Once we kind of have that skeleton figured out a little bit more, which I think we're getting very close to now, we're going to be able to move on to all these like obvious things that's like, yeah, any MMO should have this, should have that, and start to be able to just crank through those things while knowing that the underlying skeleton is going to be more stable and not something that like we're completely changing how gathering works, we're completely changing how crafting works, we're completely changing how the settlement system works. We want to nail that stuff down in alpha, and then as we start to build out the content, build out the social systems, build out the kind of supporting features.
I think Arjanac says an interesting point, which is, I think you're a victim of your own success. The game is already looking and feeling so good, except for the lag. The expectations are being pushed beyond fundamentals, even though it's the actual stage of development. And that is the thing, is we want to make sure that like 90% of what building any large project is prioritizing and making sure you're doing the right things. So you don't want to be polishing a turd. basically. You want to make sure you've got something very, very nice, and then you polish it afterwards. That being said, I mean, there's some stuff that we can do and throw in there, which is easy as we do, and we go along and do that. But that's really important. DK Sprocket, I suppose, also says, as someone who actually likes to play solo, the new forced starter village seems like a horrible choice. So the intention of putting it in there is actually to make the game more solo player friendly, and that the reasoning for it is that previously, if you wanted to play solo, you were forced to do everything that a whole group of players was also doing. So, for example, you'd have to build your own settlement. You'd have to
build every crafting station.
Go through all the skills. So the idea here is that we want you to be able to use other towns solo. Like, you don't have to necessarily even be a part of them. You can just use them. And the starter town is part of that. It's sort of to show you, like, that's how you can do it. This is how you can interact with towns. And then you can go off on your own. While still making it so that the wilderness is dangerous and that you need to take it seriously and build a cozy place of your own. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think the other thing is, there's nothing that requires you to cooperate or collaborate with any of the other players in this town. In fact, like, you could just imagine that nobody else is there. You could ignore everybody else in chat. You could ignore every other player's crafting station, or sorry, deployables and trading posts. You could just play it like a single player game. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And that's part of what we wanted to not just allow in the starter town, but also in other player settlements. Like, as the game progresses, some large like clan of players could be building a very big city and building it up to the best it can be. If you want to just go freeload there, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, and they can't even stop you from doing that. At least right now. In fact, they're actually happy to have you there, because by you being there and using their base, it's actually generating them hex coins. So they're potentially, I think what we're going to see is players trying to advertise their settlement of like, hey, new players should come start here, and we have good trades for sale, or we have tier 2 tools accessible, because they're trying to attract players to basically come use their base and generate them more revenue. Unrelated, but what is the DB RLS status? I see that there are some elements incompleted in Spacetime DB.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So for those of you who are not aware, Spacetime DB is built on BitCraft is built on a game backend engine called Spacetime DB, which is actually a relational database. I could explain more, but that's the gist of it. And the entire game is run within the database. So you upload your game logic to the database and use it there. What Benevo here is asking about is row level security, or RLS. And that just allows us to, in a very granular way, determine who can see what in the database. And that's something that we're working on for the 1.0 release of Spacetime DB. So very recently, I think last week, we released 1.0.0 release candidate 1, which is the API stable version of Spacetime DB. So basically 1.0 should be stable with the same API when we actually announce it. 1.0 is not out. In 1.0, we will have row level security, or RLS. But 1.0 is not out, just the release candidate. And we'll be adding in RLS as soon as we possibly can. So it will be happening before 1.0. And when we announce 1.0, we'll have some really cool stuff for you then. BitCraft is actually currently running on an older version of Spacetime DB. So it's running on Spacetime DB 0.11, which is pretty old at this point because of some of the API changes that we made. But newer Spacetime DB is also quite a bit faster as well in some important ways. For the people who are unable to get into the game, we have artificially limited the game's capacity because there's a bug inside of BitCraft, which is causing a significant amount of server resources to be used. and we're going to be updating the client shortly with a fix to that. So we should not only fix the lag problems, but also be able to get many more of you into the game. That's the plan.
I think 1.0 hopefully is just around the corner, and I think probably post Alpha 3 we'll be able to start the arduous journey of migrating everything in BitCraft over to 1.0. The thing is, if you're starting to build on 1.0, I think it's a lot easier. The problem is there was so much stuff that was very ugly in older versions of SpacetimeDB that actually migrating from the ugly version to the new sleek version is actually the complicated part. If you're just starting on the new version, it's actually done. A lot of stuff is done in a much cleaner, more elegant way.
That's pretty good way to do it. BitCraft the code is weird because it's gone through it's like, imagine if you wrote a game with Unity 1 and now you're on Unity 6 and you still have all the baggage from Unity 1. That's part of the challenge.
So I think it's going to be a chance for some spring cleaning once we get onto Spacetime 1.0. We can do a little bit of clean out some of the old Spacetime concepts that we had to do in the older versions and kind of get onto some of the new paradigm. Any info on when further invites will be sent out? So right now we're obviously at our limit because of the issues, and I know there's a lot of badge holders who are waiting in queue. Once we're able to raise the CCU limit, once we've got this issue resolved, we'll see. If we are getting all of the supporters into the game, then we will start considering sending out a batch of invites to just anyone who's signed up. So I can't promise that that'll be today, but probably in the next few days, we'll be looking at if that's possible. Cool. So I think we'll wrap it up here then and get ready for the raid. Thanks again, everyone who
thanks so much,
who tuned in today. I know it was a little bit rocky, and the server still we're getting that under control, but I'm really excited for everyone to have heard what we've got in Alpha 3, and I'm excited to see in the next few days what people think of it once the Alpha continues. So thank you,
and thank you for your patience. We'll get this all cleaned up for you, and hope you guys have a fun Alpha.
All right, cheers everyone.